Why do you say you want freedom, but kneel every morning to the very chains you beg to escape? Why does your voice tremble with the desire to transform, but your footsteps echo in circles, retracing pain like it's your inheritance? You swear you're ready to change, but every night you tuck yourself back into the familiarity that slowly devours you. You call it rest, you call it routine, but it's a ritual of forgetting the ache, the calling, the knowing that the life you say you want will demand the death of the one you're pretending to live. You say you're tired of the patterns, but there's a strange comfort in their rhythm, like a lullaby of your past repeating in your veins, whispering, "At least you know how this story ends." And there's safety in that, isn't there? Even if the ending is sorrow, even if the cost is your soul. Because newness is terrifying, change is holy chaos. It's the fire you can't control. It's the silence where your masks dissolve. And most people don't want that, not really. They want relief, not rebirth. They want the illusion of progress without the price of truth. So they light candles and pray for signs. They read books and repost quotes. They speak of alignment and awakening, but when the moment comes to leap, to let go, to break the comfort open and walk barefoot into the wilderness of the unknown, they freeze, because the pain they know feels safer than the freedom they don't. This is the lie of the longing, the deception of the almost awake. The soul says, "Let's go," and the mind says, "But what if we lose everything?" And here's the secret no one tells you. You will. You will lose everything not meant for your expansion, the relationships rooted in your silence, the habits built on your fear, the identity forged in the fire of needing to be accepted. All of it, burned, and in the ashes something raw will rise, something wild, unrecognizable, holy, but most will never touch that fire. They will stand at the edge of change and build houses on the threshold, beautiful, safe houses with windows facing the life they were too afraid to claim. They will call it wisdom, they will call it timing, but deep down they will always feel the throb of regret. And you're here because you hear it too, that throb, that ache, that wild whisper in the marrow of your bones that says, "This isn't it, this was never it." You were not born to perform survival, you were born to ignite, to collapse the cage and step out unrecognizable. You feel it, don't you, the pressure building, the truth growing teeth inside your silence. So let me ask you again, and this time don't flinch. Do you really want change, or do you just want to feel better about staying the same? It's not that you love the pain, it's that the pain knows your name. It welcomes you like an old friend, familiar, predictable. You don't seek out suffering, but when life quiets down, when peace starts to creep in like sunlight through cracked blinds, something in you itches, something in you flinches, because the ache is your native language. It's the rhythm your nervous system learned to dance to. You weren't taught how to feel safe in silence, only how to stay alive in chaos. You learned early on that comfort isn't always safe and safety isn't always comfortable. So now, even when the storm passes, your body searches for thunder. Even when love shows up soft, your spirit prepares for war. You say you want peace, but peace feels like danger, because peace means stillness, and stillness means you have to sit with yourself. No noise, no numbing, just you and your unhealed truths staring back like ghosts at the edge of your bed. This is why you chase what breaks you, why you gravitate toward lovers who mirror your childhood, jobs that validate your worth through exhaustion, friendships built on toleration instead of truth. You return to the patterns not because you're weak, but because they're home. Dysfunction may be a cage, but at least you know the shape of it. At least you know where it creaks, where it bends, where it bleeds. And that knowing becomes a kind of twisted comfort. Predictable pain feels safer than unpredictable joy. But can we be honest? That's not comfort, that's captivity. And you've dressed it up so beautifully. You've learned to survive in it so well. You wear your wounds like armor and call it strength. But what if strength isn't about enduring more pain? What if real strength is choosing to stop bleeding just because it's familiar? Here's the thing no one wants to admit. Healing feels like dying when your identity is built on suffering. Letting go of pain means letting go of the stories that told you who you were. It means rewriting the script from victim to creator, from martyr to mirror. It means learning how to exist without a crisis to manage, without someone to save, without a tragedy to define you. And that's terrifying because who are you without your pain? Who are you when you're not hurting, when you're not fixing, when you're not proving? You say you want to feel whole, but wholeness requires you to release the parts of you that are addicted to being broken. And that's the part most people don't want to face. So they return again and again, not because they don't want change, but because they haven't yet learned how to love themselves without the ache. But now even the ache is beginning to feel like poison. The comfort is curdling, the patterns are turning on you, and your soul, battered and breathless, is whispering beneath it all, "You don't have to keep calling this prison home." Comfort is seductive, not because it offers joy, but because it offers the illusion of control, the predictability, the routines that rock you gently into forgetting. It becomes a rhythm, a lullaby for the soul that once dared to rise. At first, you're grateful for it. After the storm, after the heartbreak, after the trauma, comfort feels like peace, like healing, but it's not. It's a pause disguised as permanence, a hiding place you mistook for a home. And slowly, so slowly you barely notice, the walls start to move inward. Not all cages are made of steel. Some are made of soft sheets, good paychecks, people who don't really see you but never challenge you either. Some are made of smiles and half-lived dreams, of doing what you're good at instead of what you're called to, of performing peace while your inner world screams. You decorate the bars, you call it stability, you start measuring your worth by how little you disturb the world around you. You call your silence maturity, your numbness wisdom. You trade your fire for functionality and say, this is just how life is. But deep down, your spirit knows. It's why the ache still finds you in the quiet. Why no amount of sleep leaves you feeling rested. Why success tastes bland on your tongue. Because you weren't made for this box. You were born with thunder in your bones, with a howl in your lungs, but you've contorted yourself so many times to stay inside the lines that you've forgotten your shape, forgotten your sound. Comfort does that. It doesn't stab you, it sedates you. It wraps you in cotton and tells you not to bleed. It rewards you for shrinking, for staying small, for staying quiet, for pretending that you're fulfilled by crumbs when your soul was built for feasts. But comfort is clever. It makes you doubt the fire in you, makes you question the hunger, makes you feel crazy for wanting more when everything looks fine. But fine is where dreams go to rot, where the sacred becomes silent, where your purpose dims to a flicker because you traded the unknown for what was easy to explain. You begin to notice the moments, the missed chances, the gut feelings you silenced, the truth you swallowed to keep the peace, the passion you buried under pragmatism. The cage wasn't locked, but you stayed because it was softer than the wilderness, because it didn't demand your becoming, because it let you stay asleep. But now the softness is suffocating. The predictability has turned into a prison. And the walls, they're echoing your name over and over, begging you to remember, begging you to wake. Because the comfort you're clinging to is not your sanctuary, it's your silence. And soon that silence will scream. It doesn't start with a scream, it starts with a whisper. A strange feeling under your skin, an irritation that logic can't explain. You wake up and the air feels heavier, the light feels dimmer. You walk through your day and nothing is wrong, but nothing feels right either. You laugh at the right moments, answer emails, smile politely, but inside, something is twitching. Something is stirring. Like a seed breaking open underground, long before anyone else can see the bloom, you try to ignore it. You call it boredom, call it burnout, call it just a phase. But it's not. It's your soul itching. It's your truth trying to claw its way to the surface. The world around you hasn't changed, but your perception has. The conversations that once fed you now drain you. The roles you played so well suddenly feel like costumes. You look in the mirror and see someone who knows exactly how to perform, but not how to live. And the silence is louder than ever. It follows you everywhere. Not the kind that soothes, but the kind that haunts. The kind that makes your heartbeat feel too loud. The kind that asks questions you've been avoiding for years. What if you've built a life that fits your fear, but not your freedom? What if everything you've worked for has become a prison made of praise? What if the success you've achieved is built on a foundation of betrayal, your own? That's the itch. That's the soul waking up. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. No matter how tightly you grip the old story, no matter how many affirmations you tape to your wall, no matter how desperately you try to fall back asleep in a life that has already outgrown you. This isn't depression. This is divine disruption. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The ache of shedding skin that no longer fits. You can't pray it away. You can't bypass it with mantras. You can't schedule your transformation into your calendar like a meeting. It comes when it comes. And when it does, you have two choices: numb it or name it. Most people numb it. They drown it in distractions, choke it with productivity, smother it with performance. But you've tried that already. And still, the itch returns. Still, the quiet discontent grows louder. Still, you feel the old comfort beginning to rot beneath your fingertips. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to understand. This is not something to fix. This is something to feel. Because the itch is sacred. It's the call to remember, to return, to rise, and you can't go back now. Not really, not when your soul has started to stir. The life that once held you gently now grips you like a trap, and the only way out is through what comes next. Excuses don't shout, they whisper, software, sensible, soothing. I'm not ready yet. Now's not the right time. I just need to feel more secure. And on the surface, they make sense. They sound like self-care, like caution, like wisdom, but underneath, they're fear dressed in rationality. Their protection against pain, your last defense against the fire of truth. Because truth doesn't wait for perfect timing. Truth doesn't come with a roadmap. It demands you leap before you're ready, speak before you're certain, rise before you're sure the ground won't give out, and that terrifies you. So you build walls out of reasons. You polish your delays until they gleam like gold. You tell yourself the universe hasn't given you a sign yet, but it has. It's given you the itch, the ache, the discontent that visits every night and stares at you in the morning mirror. That is your sign. But instead of answering, you keep rehearsing the same speech. I'll change, just not today. And with every repetition, the dream starves. The soul quiets. The wildness in you shrinks. Excuses are brilliant. They let you believe you're on the path without ever taking a step. They let you stay busy without being honest. You can talk about your potential forever. You can plan the perfect transformation, make lists, design vision boards, study the map. But the map means nothing if you're too afraid to leave the shore. And you are afraid. Afraid to lose what's familiar. Afraid to be seen in your becoming. Afraid to disappoint those who only love the version of you that stayed small. So you call it patience. You call it practicality. But it's avoidance. A subtle kind of self-abandonment that doesn't leave bruises but erodes you just the same. And it's so easy to convince yourself that you're just waiting for the right moment. But here's the truth you don't want to hear. There is no right moment. There is no perfect feeling. There is only now. And now is the doorway. Now is the cliff edge. Now is the place where your excuses either become ashes or anchors. You've worn these excuses like armor, kept them close, let them guard you from failure, from ridicule, from heartbreak, but they've also guarded you from your power, your joy, your truth. And now the armor is rusting. It's getting heavier, harder to carry. It's not protecting you anymore. It's suffocating you. So ask yourself gently but honestly, what are you really waiting for? What do you believe you'll be more ready for tomorrow than you are right now? And what if tomorrow never comes? Will you still be explaining why you never leapt, why you never loved louder, why you never burned the old story to the ground? Because one day all that's left will be your reasons, and none of them will have set you free. The unknown terrifies you not because it's dark, but because it's a mirror. It doesn't just show you what might be ahead. It shows you what you'll have to leave behind, what you'll have to face, what you'll have to become. You stand at the edge of possibility, and it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like exposure, like standing naked in front of your own soul. No masks, no metrics, no script to hide behind, just raw, trembling you, and that is what you fear. Because when you look into the unknown, it reflects all the parts of you that haven't been claimed, the dreams you buried, the truths you suppressed, the boundaries you never enforced, the power you pretended wasn't yours. The mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't flatter, it doesn't adjust its light to hide your shadows. It says, this is you unfiltered, this is you unarmored. And most people turn away, not because they aren't ready, but because they don't want to admit they've already seen who they really are and chosen to ignore it. You say you fear what's out there, but what you really fear is the collapse of what's in here, the unraveling of the self you built to survive, the crumbling of your identity, the shedding of your labels. You fear not being who you were, but even more, you fear being who you truly are. Because that version doesn't fit inside the life you've curated. That version doesn't stay quiet to keep the peace. That version burns too bright for the rooms you've settled in. And yet, the unknown keeps calling, not like a scream, but like a hum, a frequency you can't ignore. You feel it when you're alone, when the noise dies down, when the lights are off and no one's watching. That's when the mirror shows up again. And it doesn't ask you to be ready. It doesn't ask you to be fearless. It just asks you to be honest, to admit that your fear is not the problem, your resistance is. Because fear isn't the enemy. Fear is the signpost. It shows you where the growth lives, where the truth sleeps, where the next version of you waits in silence. Fear is the door, and the unknown is the keyhole. The question is, will you enter? Will you risk being undone just to finally feel whole? You've spent your whole life trying to control what happens next, but control is the chain, not the cure. And the unknown is not chaos, it's creation. It's where God does her best work. In the void, in the hush before the storm, in the moment you finally stop asking, what if I fall? And start whispering, what if I fly? So go ahead, look again, step closer. The mirror isn't here to mock you. It's here to show you the face you've been too afraid to become. There comes a moment when the ache becomes louder than the excuse. When the comfort that once held you starts to suffocate. When the old skin itches so violently that staying still becomes a kind of death. And in that moment, you face the thing you've spent your whole life dancing around. The fire, not metaphorical, not poetic, the real fire. The one that sears, the one that strips, the one that does not negotiate. You always thought you could heal without burning, that you could become without crumbling, that you could taste freedom without swallowing grief. But change is not a gentle wind, it's a wildfire. And you can't just stand near it and hope to stay intact. You have to walk into it, you have to let it undo you, you have to surrender to the heat of your own becoming. And it's terrifying, because the fire doesn't promise what will remain. It only promises that something must go. The masks, the roles, the stories, the identities you've worn like armor, but that have grown too heavy for the truth that's waking up inside you. The fire says, give me everything that isn't real. And that sounds beautiful until it starts asking for the things you swore you couldn't live without. Letting the fire touch you means sitting in the loneliness you've numbed. It means grieving the version of you that settled. It means feeling the full weight of your own abandonment. Not because others failed you, but because you betrayed your own knowing to make them comfortable. And when that truth hits, it scorches. It doesn't just sting, it shatters. But here's what no one tells you. The fire isn't here to destroy you. It's here to refine you, to burn away everything that is not aligned with your essence, to clear space for what your soul has been begging to become. The fire is holy, sacred. It is the womb and the grave, the collapse and the resurrection. And you have to be willing to lose your footing, to fall, to scream, to ache in the rawness of the in-between. This is where most people retreat. They get close to the flame and call it too intense. They name the heat unsafe. But the truth is, they're not scared of being hurt. They're scared of being seen. They're scared of living without their favorite excuses, without the scaffolding of their pain, without the predictability of their suffering. Because then there would be nothing left to hide behind. Just you, naked, alive, whole. And isn't that the real fear? Not the fire itself, but the self that rises after the burn? So let it touch you. Let it scorch the lies. Let it peel back the layers until all that's left is the raw, trembling truth. You are not breaking. You are birthing. You are not being punished. You are being purified, because before rebirth comes flame, and this is your first breath inside the fire. There is a silence after the fire that no one prepares you for. Not peace, not calm. Silence. A hollow stillness that settles over you like a fog after the storm. You've burned through the old, but the new hasn't arrived yet. You've let go of who you were, but you haven't yet become who you're meant to be. And in that strange space between identities, something sacred dies. The mask. The one you didn't even know you were wearing. The one that smiled when you were breaking. The one that performed peace while your soul was starving. The one that agreed when everything in you wanted to scream no. You wore it so long it became skin. It got praised, rewarded, admired. It helped you survive. It helped you belong. But it also kept you small, kept you disconnected, kept you pretending, and now it won't stay on. The fire melted the glue. The weight of your truth cracked it in half. And suddenly you see it for what it really was. Not armor, but avoidance. Not strength, but strategy. You weren't being authentic. You were being acceptable. You weren't being whole. You were being palatable. Because somewhere deep inside, you believed the real you wasn't enough. Or worse, was too much. So you shaped yourself into something quieter, softer, simpler. You silenced the parts of you that were too intense, too emotional, too wild, too honest. You let the world edit your spirit. And the mask became a way to keep the peace outside while waging war inside. But now that mask is dying. And you feel it in the way you can't fake it anymore, in the way your laughter catches in your throat, in the way your spirit resists the rooms you used to shrink into so easily. You feel it in your fatigue, in your sudden inability to tolerate shallow things. You feel it in your grief for all the years you abandoned your own voice just to be loved. This is ego death, not loud, not dramatic, just the slow disintegration of everything you thought you had to be, the unraveling of the lies you built your worth upon, the sacred devastation of illusion. And it hurts. God, it hurts, but it's the kind of hurt that heals, that empties you to make space for what's real, and what's real is terrifying, because it doesn't come with applause, it doesn't fit into boxes, it won't be understood by everyone, but it's yours, finally, fully yours. No edits, no masks, just truth, trembling and holy, so let it die. Let the mask fall without catching it. Let the ego grieve its own fiction. You don't need it anymore, you never did. Because on the other side of pretending is presence, and on the other side of the mask is the face of the soul. You didn't ask for this rebirth. You didn't schedule it into your calendar. You didn't put it on your 5-year plan. It arrived like a storm that didn't knock, just tore the roof off your soul and demanded you rise from the rubble. You thought transformation would look cleaner. You thought healing would feel like ascending, but it felt like dying, like losing, like being emptied of everything you thought made you lovable, valuable, whole. And yet, here you are, not healed in the way they promise in the books, not tied up with bows and blessings, but honest, unmasked, awake. There's dirt under your fingernails and softness in your eyes. Your heart is stitched together with threads made of truth, and it beats differently now, not louder, but truer. It doesn't race to be seen. It pulses in rhythm with something eternal, something ancient, something that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. You've stopped explaining yourself to people who never saw you in the first place. You've stopped apologizing for your depth, your fire, your inconvenient truths. You've stopped performing the role of the one who has it all together, because now you know no one believes that anyway. And the ones who pretend they do are usually the ones hurting the most, just like you were. You've begun walking with silence instead of filling it, sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's the presence of presence. And you've tasted it now, not because life got easier, but because you stopped resisting what it's here to teach you. You're no longer seduced by comfort if it costs you your soul. You no longer crave applause for a version of you that isn't real. You've stopped worshipping the illusion of safety and started honoring the wild, inconvenient, terrifying, beautiful truth that lives in your belly, the one that says you are not broken, you are becoming. This is what it means to be reborn without permission, to stop waiting for the world to validate your becoming, to no longer shrink yourself into roles or bite your tongue in the name of peace or dress your truth in softer tones just to be digestible. You are not here to be digestible. You are here to be whole, to be free, to burn so brightly that others remember their own flame. You no longer need the old stories, the old survival songs, the old masks and metrics. You've left them in the fire where they belonged. And what's left is not perfection, it's presence, it's power. It's a quiet, unshakable knowing that says, I may never be the same. And that is the gift. You are not waiting anymore. You are not shrinking anymore. You are not choosing comfort over truth anymore. You are the change. You are the fire. You are the awakening. And no one had to give you permission to rise.